Hello everyone, welcome to the Midland Reporter Telegram's Area Football Report. I'm Len Hayward here with Oscar Leroy. Well, Oscar, everything started last week, week 0, and we're going to start right off talking about Greenwood and Comanche, that Thursday night game at Grande Communications Stadium. Test for both teams, new offenses, new coaches, everything. Greenwood came out on top. But did you see something out of both teams that those teams could get better as the year progresses?
Yes, I did. For Greenwood, you saw some signs that they really accepted the spread offense, where the kids are catching the ball for the most part. You have some offside penalties, you have some turnovers, but for the most part, the kids are really accepting the offense. They're running the offense really well. They're running decent routes, for the most part. Mm-hmm. So you have to like that from the Greenwood standpoint. For Comanche, they still need to do a lot of work on offense, but they hung in there, and they didn't stop fighting, considering that they were down 21-0. Right. Greenwood could have really rolled over them. It could have been 40-0, the final score. But Comanche had some fight in them, and that's a credit to Coach Gardner, Trey Gardner, and his staff. Right. And I mentioned that in my column today. And it's just you see that both teams have good work ethics. Mm-hmm. A lot of teams can say can go in and get run over because it's the first game. You say it's the first game, but Comanche has to like that. And Greenwood has to like the fact that they finally clicked in the third quarter on that offense.
Right. Any other teams, before we get into talking about a couple of games this week, were there any other teams in reading that either really surprised you last week or showed something you didn't think they had last week?
No. Big Spring did show some improvement from last scrimmage when they couldn't score against Estacado. Right. But like we mentioned, Fort Stockton is not an Estacado. Right. But you have to like the fact that they got things going, and their defense was able to shut out Fort Stockton. Offensively, they got some good plays out of Devontae Anderson, the quarterback. There's still room for improvement, of course, but you have to like what you saw from them. Right. Of course, Midland Christian, nothing surprises us with the amount of returning offensive players they have coming back. Right. And for them to score 56 points, that's pretty impressive against the Seminole team. The Seminole team, they're a little banged up, but the Seminole still has made the playoffs the last 6 years. Right. And have a nice little tradition going. And it's at Wigwam Stadium. To score 56 points is pretty impressive. Right. Now, folks are going to say, well, they gave up 32 points. 21 of those points came in the second half when Seminole was forced to throw the ball. Right. So it's kind of hard to tell what kind of defense Midland Christian is going to have. But you have to like what Midland Christian's done. Right. And then Big Spring has an interest. And then talk a little bit about Andrews. I don't think they really did anything flashy Friday night, but they won. But that could be their year. I mean, that could be what they do this year. There may be a whole bunch of people gain 100 yards, but they still win games. Yeah. Nobody's going to break out, I guess. Well, Coach Cordell was most happy because they finally won an opening game of the season. The time he's been there. So that was a positive thing. They had mistakes, of course. They had turnovers, penalties, like most teams will at the beginning of the year. But he likes what he saw, and there's room to grow. But they got to win. That's the only thing that counts. I think they're a team to watch this year. We'll start a little bit talk about Andrews. Andrews gets to go up to Plainview this week and take on the Bulldogs. It used to be a district game. This is an interesting game for both teams. I mean, this will be a good test for Andrews one. Mm-hmm. Plainview, of course, is a 4A school, which means they're going to have more numbers. Right. And according to Coach Jeff Cordell, that the Bulldogs are also bigger. Right. So, but Plainview has also struggled in recent years. A little bit more than Andrews has. And Andrews has at least made the playoffs last year. And has got a lot of that return experience coming back. So that's going to be the key with that experience and take over that ball game. And then Comanche at Comanche. This could be a game where Comanche could really kind of give themselves a chance to kind of rebound off of that loss last week, isn't it? Yes, it will be. And a lot depends on how much they improve from last week. Coach Gardner saw some great things, but there's a lot of offensively they didn't do as well as they probably wish he could have, especially in the running game. There was some miscommunication. The kids ran the wrong routes, ran the wrong way sometimes. Right. So, but it's gonna see how much that game might determine how much confidence they're gonna have for the rest of the non-district schedule. Right. And then these last two we'll pick scores on. Big Spring at Friendship, a nice little 4-4A rivalry. The last couple years, now Big Spring's in 3A. Friendship is still a pretty large 4A. What's going to happen in this one? Friendship look good. They beat Lubbock Coronado. And like I've always said, I think the best school in Lubbock, football program in Lubbock, is Friendship. Mm-hmm. I'll take away the 5As. I mean, I really don't think much of the 5As. So, to be honest with you, I'm just being honest. So, but Friendship is the elite program, and it looks like they're back. I like Friendship in this one.
But will Big Spring give them any kind of a game? Is their defense good enough, and can their offense hold on to the
Their defense is good enough to keep them off the field. Keep them. Their offense is going to. Friendship's offense appears they like to be concentrated on the running game.
Right.
So if they can stop their running game, that's going to be a key. But Friendship also appears to be big.
Right.
Like they have in the past. I don't know if they have a Mason Walters type like they had a few years ago.
Right.
But they're still pretty big, and they're going to run the football right at them.
Give me a score on that one.
Steers fans aren't going to like me for this one, but 41-20.
Yeah, I kind of like that in that area. I think it's going to be 42-17. I still think Big Spring's going to have some issues trying to score. And Friendship's Friendship. I think they rebounded. They're going to be a good team this year. Finally, Crane goes to Greenwood. Crane coming off a big win against Van Horn, 33-7. Althoff threw the ball a heck of a lot last week. Greenwood coming in. And is there any news on Caden Hatley before we get into that?
He's going to be out 3 weeks.
Out 3 weeks?
He's 3 weeks with a shoulder injury.
So what does that do to Greenwood at the quarterback?
That means Cam Williams, the backup sophomore, is going to play.
Talking about thrown into the fire.
Yeah, but he got thrown into the fire last week. He did all right, but he's a sophomore. That's the thing, Mm-hmm. He's a great athlete. He can throw the ball. We'll see how they do with him at quarterback.
This is a game where, there's probably going to be a heck of a lot more balls in the air in this game than there might have been in Crane Greenwood games in the past, right?
Probably so. But Crane has can run the ball too, so they like to mix it up. I know they're going to try to mix it up this week against Greenwood. So can Greenwood's numbers take over? That's the thing,
right?
But
what do you think is going to be the big matchup in this game? Is it going to be Greenwood's offense against Crane's defense, or is it going to be Crane's offense against Greenwood's defense?
Crane's offense against Greenwood's defense.
Right.
Greenwood's defense is pretty good. They are really good. Look at last week, the points that Greenwood did give up. 6 of those came off on offense, and they returned an interception.
Right.
So they really have only given up 6 points this year.
Right.
So Greenwood's defense is looking really good.
Give me a prediction on this one for a score.
I think it's going to be a close one. I think it might be 24-21 Greenwood.
I like Crane in this one. I think Crane's passing offense may be a little bit too much. I think it's going to be 21-20. Crane, they're going to go into King Stadium and win that game. So I'd like to thank you for joining us here. It's week 1 of the high school football season, the second week of the season. I'm Len Hayward. That's Oscar Leroy. Thank you for joining us here on the Reporter Telegram's Area Football Report.